Welcome to this Oxford Leader interview. I'm Katy Hamilton and I'm here to chat to Ben Appl, which is a real pleasure. Hello, Ben.
Hello, Katy. Nice to meet you online.
Very nice to meet you too. So if things had been different and we were not all locked up in our own houses, you would be singing as part of the Oxford Leader Spring Festival with Simon Lepper. And I think I'm right in saying that you were going to be singing some English songs.
Yes, actually quite a lot. I always find it very frightening to sing in English in England. I find English the most difficult language to sing in. Very often I find with other languages they have very clear vowels and clear instructions. But with English, when you ask 10 language coaches, you have 11 opinions about when to bring the diphthong and the vowel color and so on. So I find it very difficult, but I live here now for 10 years and I really thought it's about time to spend more time on the beautiful English repertoire.
And so is this the first time that you've kind of explored English song in a big way? Because mostly we associate you with singing, unsurprisingly, auf Deutsch.
No, I've done quite a lot of English songs also while studying at the Guildhall School. But and then obviously I do quite a lot of war requiem, for example. So I do quite a lot, but still it's something you just want to make it right. And obviously, a lot of promoters normally ask you always when you're from Germany to sing in German or French singers to sing French melody. So somehow you would like even more often to sing in different languages, but somehow the demand or what people and the promoters want is your native language.
So you said it's to do with the vowel sounds that make singing in English a more difficult prospect. Is that partly about accent and dialect, or is it more generally a kind of just a sort of...
I think it's generally something. For example, you have, well, now I'm British as well, so I can say we have some of these vowels like a cat, this kind of a vowel, which doesn't exist in the same way in other languages. And the Germans, for example, say cat or cat, because we really don't know exactly how to pronounce this properly. That's one example. But also with diphthongs, they come very late when you sing. And it's just, for example, when you put in like cow, when you put in the second vowel and how fast you go into that. And that's something I find quite challenging.
So I'm entertained by the fact you chose the word cow, because we tend to think of, or we have a dangerous tendency to think of certain early 20th century English song composers as being cowpat composers, the kind of the pastoral poetry that tends to get set by composers like Vaughan Williams and Finzi and Gurney and others who are writing in the first couple of decades of the 1900s. But clearly there's an awful lot of richness in that repertoire as well. So,
and it's a beautiful repertoire, and I have to say, mainly in Germany, maybe people sing sometimes Vaughan Williams' songs of travel, but apart from that, it's not very often you can't listen very often in concert halls, and that's something which is a shame. And therefore, obviously, I try to perform it here, but also then bring it to Germany and try to be in my way, my little own way, being a little ambassador for the German beautiful literature and music.
That's really interesting. Years ago, I lived briefly in North Germany, and I remember mentioning William Walton to several musical friends of mine, and they'd never heard of Walton. They didn't know any of the big Walton works that in this country we're all so familiar with. It's funny what travels and what doesn't. Yeah. So what specifically, what repertoire were you and Simon planning to sing? Was it mostly Vaughan Williams, or were there other composers in the mix?
Well, actually, I think in this program in Oxford, I was supposed to do a concert the day before in Ilkley for the concert club there, and there was even more English repertoire. For example, generally the topic was about songs of travel. Obviously, we were supposed to sing Vaughan Williams' amazing cycle, but then also in the other half, Sea Fever, Ireland, something from Butterworth, a Finzi song. So really a mixed bouquet of English songs, and then combined with the German songs by Wolf, also about the Wanderer, wandering, and some of the Schubert songs.
That's fascinating, because I know you were working, and indeed I think had an album out not so long ago about Heimat and the concept of being at home and in one place. And I think there was some English repertoire as part of that program as well. So is this a kind of partner project, the person at home, the sense of home, and then going off and wandering and traveling?
Not really, but now you say it, I just find it always fascinating to find a way of something which we can relate to in this music. And the concept of Heimat, of being at home, I found at this time very urgent for me, living in London and thinking going back to Germany, or if I should stay here. And then also with the entire thing of immigration, which was so present in our time. So there's so many people, also through the globalization, have to go for work to other places. It really is a topic which belongs to all of us. And therefore I chose Heimat. But Heimat also doesn't mean only staying at home, but also being on a journey of finding your own place where you feel you belong to, or where your identity lies. And therefore, it's such an important topic of the repertoire of the 19th century, and I think something we all can really feel very close to.
And speaking of Heimat, and in the most literal sense, we are all at the moment, most of us, stuck in our respective Heimat locations. How is it with you? How has it been in lockdown? What have you been doing?
Well, I have to say so far, if I know that there is a normal life in 2 weeks' time again, I really think it would have been the most amazing time. Unfortunately, we all know it won't stay like that. It's just that the last 2 weeks I really enjoyed being at home. I haven't had a period like that for the last 5-6 years. Always traveling, always thinking of the next flight, always thinking of the next repertoire, of the next concert. Do I know the pieces of copy and so on? So suddenly being at home for 2 weeks and really clean up the place, having time for really cooking dinner, having a nice glass of wine, having a lot of time to call actually people I'm very fond of, or I really love dearly, to have the time and the luxury to check in with them and have a Skype call or FaceTime call and really connect with these people, although you're so isolated. I found that somehow very, very nice. But obviously, this can't go on forever. And I feel very sorry, not just for musicians or anyone who lost work right now, or is not able to work or earn money or gets into financial troubles, but also the entire music industry, like festivals, like agents, everyone who is around. I think it's a very, very tough time for everyone.
It certainly is, and it's wonderful that festivals like Oxford, and I know there are many others as well, are able to kind of keep going online. Certainly I've seen pieces go past in the last few days talking about how musicians were amongst the fastest to sort of react to master technology to start doing things online, which is fantastic. Although, as you say, the kind of financial damage of this for most of us is really serious. Have you been?
Yeah. Sorry. And I also think actually it's a wonderful idea to share music making from home online. On the other hand, it's not really replacing the life experience of concert. And I think that's something we should all be aware, and also as us as performers be aware that this should not become really the essence. The essence should stay in the concert venue when you share really with an audience in front of you, and the emotions and the feeling and the atmosphere of a room. And that's something you can't have at home in your living room. And there's a huge, huge part missing.
Yeah, absolutely. The specialness of the atmosphere of being in a room with people who are making music is absolutely kind of, it cannot be duplicated in any other form. Even if you're streaming live, even if you've got people watching or singing along with you online, it's being in the space that makes it such a magical thing. Have you been making much music at home, or have you been having a kind of quiet period so that you can get on with cleaning and cooking and other things?
Well, it takes actually a lot of time, all of that suddenly. I realized that. But I try every day to just do a few exercises, really keep the voice in shape. It's dangerous when you completely turn it down. It's hard after a while to really start the entire machinery again. So I do that, but obviously I also spend a lot of time in looking to new repertoire, thinking of new programs, just thinking ahead, having conversations with managers about how to proceed in the future, or what might be nice, what nice collaboration would be, what CD projects. So there's a lot of work you can do at home, also in terms of music and your career, and just reflecting and thinking what's important and what you might also change afterwards if possible.
Hmm. And that's very interesting, I suppose. Yeah, as you say, the moment of being able to sort of sit still when you're used to dashing from one thing to another. If you're putting together a program, you've talked quite a lot about the rather intricate and beautiful links that you've made with the Heimat program, with the program that you were going to be performing this week with Simon. How do you go about putting together a program like that? Does it tend to develop over time, or do you sit down and talk to potential collaborators and then work out between you how repertoire might go?
Well, normally it takes a lot of time for me to also sleep over again and come back and realize it doesn't work out. And then reading books about completely different things. Right now I found a fascinating article about this kind of death mourning, particularly in the southern countries, where mainly elderly women, when someone dies in the family, are actually this mourning and permanent kind of creating these strange sounds and stuff like that, for example, then combining with songs. That's something, for example, which I spend a lot of time the last few days. So very often, or in nature or in a conversation with people, I find sometimes hints or something which I hope somehow to always bring in context with songs. And I think that's the wonderful thing when you have poetry and the music, which is so precise in the feelings, in the pictures, then really reach out with different art forms, with dance or whatever, just to bring it always into a context and also to broaden it up and introduce it to as many people as possible.
And how do you balance the sort of general shape of your year, aside from the impact of global pandemics, between, putting together song recitals, working on larger scale repertoire, like you mentioned, the War Requiem, but also Bach Passions, for example, or other things that you have in the mix, and other kind of work that you do as well? Do you aim for a balance between the different components over the course of the year?
No, definitely. In the beginning, when you start a career, you really have to take on what is offered to you, and you have to learn a lot of repertoire. You have to travel a lot to small places. You have to sing for any kind of fees, or maybe even for no fee. So you really have to build up your reputation. You have to get to know people. So that's the entire thing in the beginning of a career, and I think that's very, very important. And I also always recommend to my students that they really should perform as much as possible in the beginning, because it's also, I think it has the biggest learning curve and it's more helpful sometimes than some vocal lessons at a music college. But right now I feel very privileged and lucky, and I'm thankful to so many people. For example, also to Schulte, who was a big supporter in the beginning, and the Oxford Lieder Festival, and the audience there, which is a wonderful audience, and in this beautiful Holywell room where you feel you're embraced by the audience. So these are wonderful experiences you have from the beginning. I'm so thankful to these people. But so right now I'm also in a situation where you can choose more what you want to do and in which direction you want to go, and that's also a wonderful thing to discover that, and to also challenge you all the time in which direction you could go, or maybe where you are brave and you do stuff which is out of your comfort zone or out of your box where people might put you in. So that's always, I like when you do something suddenly what people didn't expect from you.
And are there any dream projects, dream pieces of repertoire that are still on the horizon that you'd really like to tackle in the next
No,
couple?
absolutely. There's so much repertoire. When I worked with Fischer Liska, he always said you have to learn all the repertoire up to when you're 35, because afterwards you're hopefully so busy that you don't have so much time anymore to learn new repertoire, but also your brain actually gets slower with age. And it's true, I realized that. But there's so much repertoire and so many collaborations with beautiful musicians, interesting instruments I would like to explore, and really some solo pianists I would like to work with. So also another repertoire, exploring more the contemporary music, but also going even further back in the early music. I find that all very interesting, and I don't want to limit myself, and I'm always curious and open to find new repertoire, new collaborations. So I think there are enough dreams, and when you ask me today about my favorite piece or what I would like to do, it might be a completely different one to the one I will tell you tomorrow.
Well, that's great. That's the dream, isn't it? Of always having new
I hope so.
things.
I hope so.
Okay, so I think to finish, since you said that you've been chatting to friends, but you've also been doing lots of cooking, is there one thing that you think we should all be top recipe that we should be eating in lockdown that you've been perfecting over your time at home?
No, I try not to have every day the same. Talking about porridge now, no. No, I just like, I had a wonderful bolognese a day ago, yesterday, beautiful chicken. So I try to eat every day something else and try out, and some things. It's like song recitals. With some you're more happy, the other one you still, it's a challenge, and you hope next time you will make them better. But I ordered also a lot of equipment for baking. Also now looking ahead for Easter. So yeah. I try out some new things. Let's see if all of them are kind of tasty or some of them end up immediately in the rubbish bin.
I sense a new YouTube channel forming on the horizon.
Exactly, maybe. Exactly. That's the next one. Singing and cooking or baking.
Sounds fantastic. Ben, thank you so much. Here's to song recitals and to fabulously varied diets as well.
And I hope soon we will all see each other, not on a screen, but really in a concert hall or a venue, and really that we soon are able to share music together, and that we all stay healthy, and that's the most important thing for all of us.
Agreed, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Bye bye. Take care.